get started. We can start the recording. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the October 25th, 2021 meeting of the Fairfield RTM. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in honor of Mary Kay Frost, who recently passed away and who was very involved in town, including as an RTM member. Okay, thank you. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Ed Bateson. Veronica Monahan.
Here.
Amy O'Shea.
Here.
Amy Ruggiero.
Here.
Bill Gerber. McCormick.
Here.
Cindy Perham.
Here.
Jeff Steele.
Here.
Alex Durrell.
Here.
Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Scott Nickel.
Here.
Sharon Pistilli.
Here.
Laura Carson.
Here.
Alice Kelly.
Here.
Marcy Spolier.
Here.
Liz Esma.
Here.
Will Diaz.
Here.
Josh Garskoff.
Here.
Joe Siebert.
Here.
Jay Wolk.
Here.
Matt Ambrose. Hannah Gale. Lisa Havey. Tamisha Dunmore. John Kuhn.
Here.
Mark McDermott.
Here.
Jill Vergara.
Here.
Karen Wackerman.
Here.
Hank Ferentz. Pamela Iacono.
Here.
Christine Messina.
Here.
Peter Tallman.
Here.
Drew Georgiadis.
Here.
Rick Rauer.
Present.
Chrissy Kelly.
Here.
Bill Perugini.
Here.
Elizabeth Altabelli. Ken Astorita.
Here.
Peter Britton.
Here.
And Frank Patisse.
Here.
Thanks, Betsy. Our
Betsy,
next item
Bill
is to
Gerber's here.
consider.
Oh, there you are, Bill.
Okay. And Betsy, Liz Altabelli is saying she's here on the chat. Anybody else who needs to tell Betsy you're here? Okay. Our next item is to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular monthly meeting held on September 27th, 2021. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Representative Wolk, seconded by Representative Nickel. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thanks. The motion passes. Next is to hear a report from the Joint Retirement Investment Board. And I'm going to welcome Ms. Trabucco for that purpose. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. I think I was here a year ago, so it's nice to be here with you today. You should have in your packet two presentation documents. One is Town of Fairfield Pension, and the other is Town of Fairfield OPEB. And I'll be kind of speaking to those. I'm delighted to share with you our performance summary ending June 30th, 2021, which was the fiscal year end. Starting first, I'm going to start with the pension, okay, and then I'll go into OPEB for you. On the pension, we ended the fiscal year with $468.9 million in value, in market value. That was a 3-month performance of an increase of 6.25%. And I'm pleased to tell you the 1-year performance in pension was an increase of 25.57%. And we don't yet have the full impact of the private equity performance, which is always reported on a 3-month lag, so it's likely to even be a little higher than that. The way the pension fund and the OPEB benefited greatly from a very, very strong global markets. It was tied to the rollout of vaccines, the resumption of global growth, and an accommodative Federal Reserve. The allocation that we ended the fiscal year on for pension was 56% in equities, 30% in fixed income, 4.8% in real estate, 7.4% in private equity, and 1% in cash. And I'll get into changes we've made to the allocation in just a few moments. If you have that presentation document on page 2, you'll have an opportunity to see how we did against our benchmarks. Not only was the performance strong, but we actually outperformed our benchmarks as well. And that's something that we look to do each year to the best of our ability. At the bottom of page 3, if you happen to be following along, down toward the bottom on the left, you'll see a row that says private equity. Private equity was an extraordinary standout for the year. The 1-year performance, and it's actually it's only through March that performance number is. So you can expect that number to be revised upward when we get the results in. Private equity was up 74% in the 1-year period of time, and one of our investments was up 87% during that period of time. So it was really a really spectacular moment in time for the equities and for private equity in particular. If you're wondering about private equity, and we can talk about that if you'd like, on page 5, we've laid out our 5 private equity strategies, our alternative strategies. You can see what they are and how they've performed. You'll also should take note that they're largely funded. The last private equity investment the pension funds made was back in 2017. And we're at a point in the life cycle of our private equity where we're receiving distributions. We're on what's called the other side of the J curve. And we've made additional allocations going forward to private equity. If you could flip to page 6, I really like this page. I like this chart. It's probably the first time you've seen this in a JRIB presentation. This is the performance chart laid out for each year as how we've done. And Vanguard is our OCIO. You heard a lot about us moving over to Vanguard as an OCIO with us. They put together this chart for us. The inception column dates back March of 2020 because that's when we started working with Vanguard, right? So if you can look at the other years, you can see not only that the performance of the pension funds has been pretty strong over the last 10 years, but particularly strong in this past fiscal year. Page 7 can help you understand kind of the impact of the year. If you were to look at the top of the page, there are 4 columns, and the third one over from left to right says fiscal year to date. And that will show that we started our fiscal year with $368 million in assets. We had net cash flow in. Additionally, we had income, but we had a capital appreciation year of $92 million, which is a nice number to circle and to point out for you. And so we ended the year with $469 million of assets. That's what I wanted to point out specifically from this prepared page. I do want to let you know and update you that we're not resting on our laurels over on JRIB. We've made some changes to our allocations. We did that in the September meeting. I'll walk you through that. We decreased our equity exposure from 56% to 50%. We increased our fixed income exposure from 30% to 35%. We kept real estate the same, and we increased private equity from 7.4 to 10%. The other change we made to pension is we did lower the discount rate. We lowered it from 7% to 6.9%. We lowered it by 10 basis points. And we came to the decision on that by doing a comparative analysis to the towns near us, the towns across the state of Connecticut. We worked with Vanguard to determine, based on our performance bands, where we would fall. And we felt that we took a unanimous vote that 6.9% would land us in the right place. If you'd like, I can take questions on pension, or I can roll right into OPEB. And then we can take questions at the end if there are any. Okay, I'm going to roll forward onto OPEB. Same kind of layout of a presentation book. OPEB ended the fiscal year with a market value of $76 million in assets. The 3-month performance was up 5.8%. The 1-year performance was up 30.30%. The allocation was a little more tilted toward equities. It was 71.5% in equities, 18.5% fixed income, 7.4% in real estate, 2% in cash. On page 2 of the presentation, that's again where we see the benchmarks. Very proud to say we outperformed our benchmarks. If we move kind of forward again to page 5, you'll see that 10-year performance summary. And again, you can see the performance. The performance has been fairly strong over the 10 years, with this year clearly being a real standout year. On page 6, we began the fiscal year with a market value of $52.8 million. We had positive cash inflow, we had income, but we generated a capital appreciation of $16 million to end the year at $76 million in assets. Something to note, the OPEB funds don't have a private equity allocation. That will change going forward. In the September meeting, the JRIB made some significant changes to our allocations. We reduced our equity exposure going forward from that 71.5% down to 60%. We increased our fixed income allocation from 18.5% to 20%. We increased real estate from 7.4% to 10%. And we're introducing a private equity allocation of 10%. The reason OPEB wasn't invested in private equity prior to this is that we didn't have the minimum size to make the minimum investment into the private equity category until now. And so we're really delighted to be able to enter into the private equity allocation for the OPEB. We also, for OPEB, lowered the discount rate, the same rate, from 7% to 6.9%. And other updates I can give you quickly, we did change, a year ago in March, we changed we adopted an OCIO strategy, which is we brought in Vanguard to be a co-fiduciary with us. That's why part of the reason we're invested so broadly in equity and fixed income is we're using Vanguard products. We changed the actuary after many decades of using Hooker and Holcomb. We've changed over to Millman. They're terrific. We're having a very good experience with them thus far. And of course, we lowered the discount rate. So that's where I'll kind of stand. I'm happy to field any questions you have.
Does anyone have any questions? Representative Bateson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 1. Carolyn, thanks for the update. I have a couple of general questions, I'll say. You're right, I saw in this report, this is the performance year to date, that this is a monster gain. And I know that I know that we smooth performance into the calculation for the budgetary impact. Do we have any inkling as to what the budget impact of this gain is going to be? I got to imagine it has to help.
It's even with 5-year smoothing. I can really assume you're going to see some upward bias to the funded ratio, and overall to the status of the funds. I don't want to put a number out there. Remember, we're still waiting for private equity numbers to come in, and they're going to be better. They're going to influence the performance numbers upward. And then from a valuation for the GASB report, they do use 5-year smoothing, but it's hard to deny a plus 25% year-on-year return. It should affect the numbers in a positive way for the town.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, 10% is one thing, but 25% is monster.
It's a big year. It was a big year.
Okay, another thing, I have been waiting for the board to take action on the discount rate. I'm glad you only went to 6.9. I'm sure there were other options you could have considered out there. Did anybody run an analysis on the impact of the budget when you made that change?
Of course. Well, we on the town budget.
Yes.
Remember the JRIB, we deliver to you liability, right? We deliver to you based upon our performance. We deliver a liability, a cost to the town. We absolutely look at scenario analysis for the cost, the increased cost that comes from lowering the discount rate. We don't take that responsibility lightly. And we were, I think, prudent in what we did. I think the CFO's office kind of knows where those numbers will land for the budget. I can also tell you that this is a decision we took in July, and the next time we might see a revision or at least a discussion on the discount rate going forward will be next July. All right, so not looking to get into the budget season or out with our decisions. The 6.9%. It was a unanimous vote. I mean, we spent 2 to 3 months looking at it, analyzing it, and felt that was the right number for us. I don't think that the budgetary impact is going to be outsized. I think it's going to be very, very reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it does help that the performance was as strong as it was.
Thank you.
Representative Zezima.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you to Carolyn. Nice to see you, Carolyn, and thank you for the great presentation. Ed Bateson asked one of my questions, but the other is, when I was last on this body and certainly on the Board of Finance, we had a commodity fund, which I believe, since I don't see it here, we've decided to divest from.
Yeah, we've exited our positions in the commodities funds and in hedge funds. Right. Rather, we've simplified. We've simplified the funds to the more broad categories of equities. And the Vanguard product for us is a total index return fund. We are exposed to the whole market, not to the subsector of the market. And the same on the fixed income side. We actually were able to engineer out significant costs from the pension funds and the OPEB funds. By not going forward with high fees hedge funds.
Thank you.
Representative Kuhn.
No, as soon as I can get the information, Carolyn, I guess I can ask you offline. I was curious, I should say, on what the particular private equity investments were. And I guess you're not including hedge funds as a portion of that. But I just wanted to see what those were and what the particular strategies were that they were invested in.
Yeah, so what we've had thus far, right, we've got 5 private equity investments with 2 fund-of-fund firms, Mesereau and Lexington. Mesereau's a primarily primary fund-of-funds private equity investor. Lexington is secondaries. It's a little less costly, a little less long lead time for us. Going forward, the allocation that we're discussing. And we spent the last 6 months analyzing and looking at our thoughts, trying to identify the right vehicle for us in private equity going forward. We voted to go forward with Mazzarell when they're ready to. They're not doing a 2021 fund. They might do a 2022 fund. And then HarborVest. Now, HarborVest is a really large fund of funds, private equity fund of funds provider. And Vanguard has made it very attractive to us on a fees basis to use Vanguard.
Okay, so we're not paying fees on fees on fees because we're doing fund of funds.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. All right.
Right.
And we're not trying to pick and choose the winners. We're taking a portfolio approach to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, you know, it's hard to pick the winners from the losers when you meet once a month. And so I think this is probably a better, broader strategy for us. And it takes a lot of the cost out.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. Carolyn, thank you very much. That was really helpful.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Okay, well, good night. Our next item is to hear a report on the Voluntary Early Retirement Incentive Program, or VERIP, from the First Select Woman. Brenda, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and I'm happy that I am able to have an opportunity to provide an update to the RTM on VRIP, not just VRIP, but also my administration's reorganization efforts for our town government. I'm going to share some slides now with the body. Okay, so modernizing town government for today and tomorrow. So for historical content, the voluntary early retirement incentive proposal, an early retirement package was offered in 2009. However, that plan had no financial analysis and was not brought to the RTM for a vote. That plan in 2009 also did not reorganize or make any process or accountability changes to our town structure. Further, they did not follow up with any analysis. In continuing on my efforts of a transparent and accountable government, my administration presented a VRIP to the RTM for input and a vote. While union contracts prevent many necessary changes, the VRIP was the first step to help us allow for reform and modernizing our town government. We promised to give you this information when we presented that, and that is the purpose of this presentation, but we are providing far more of an update than was requested. So you can see here, this slide shows you VRIP and then the reorganization of our town government, hiring a modern day workforce, modernization, and employee training, because a government that is more efficient and responsive to its residents is a better government. VRIP was the first phase in a multi-phase approach to modernize our town, to support modernizing town government, to improve service to residents, to reorganize departments and create efficiencies and eliminate duplication and waste. Make government smaller, more efficient, and smarter through technological advancements and managerial improvements. Change the culture within town government to improve the customer service experience for our residents and our businesses. Restructuring government to produce efficiencies and to emphasize a customer service approach. Consolidate and eliminate positions no longer required. Create new positions that fit better operational needs, modern workforce to maximize the use of technology, and emphasize customer service-centric approach, which has always been the highlight of my on my priority list. I'm going to hand these financial projections versus actual projections over to our CFO, Jared Schmidt.
Good evening and thank you. I'm just going to walk you through the next 3 slides, which are the numbers of the outcome and what we've seen so far in FY21 and 22. Where we last left off, and last time we made a presentation to you and did a projection of what the savings would be, we estimated about $163,000 in FY21. You can see the total cost projected there and total savings. Where we ended up was at $250,000, almost $251,000 for FY21. And the savings were the result of the VRIP 17 employees who elected to take it, and we shared a lot of those details with you back in January, I believe, when we knew who was taking it, knew exactly how many, which departments and all that. So 17 employees across 11 departments, and there was a net reduction of 4 positions. And if you look at how many people and how many positions have been eliminated, or probably a better way to say it is turned over since we started VRIP, it's been almost 10% of the workforce, not including police, fire, education, which were separate and VRIP did not apply to them. But if you look at the rest of the town workforce, it's, the turnover has been pretty dramatic, almost 10%. So what this chart shows you is what I just talked about, the $250,000 in savings for FY21. These are actual numbers by position as requested by the RTM. And I'll quickly run through how to look at this chart, and you can see the definitions down below, what each of the columns represents. But department name is pretty self-explanatory. Job title of that's the job title of the participants. Their salary from FY21 and what that was. So there's a total of $1.465 million in salaries. The salary savings is related to the amount of time that they did not occupy that position. So this would be if somebody, most of them were out of their position by January 1st. So for that time period from January 1st to the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, there was savings, and that's what that represents in that column, the salary savings, the amount of time that the position was, the amount of time that that person wasn't in that position. The vacation payout was, that's contractual. We have to do that. So any of the VRIP participants who had vacation time left over, we have to pay that out by contract. So that's the amount that we paid out for each one. And this is separate from the lump sum payout that I'll get to later on. There were, for some of these positions, it was, there were part-time costs that we had to put into place to keep the position going and keep the duties going for that position. And so you can see the costs related to that through the end of fiscal year 21. The replacement cost is the cost of any permanent employees who had been hired during FY21 to replace the VRIP participant who left. And then there's a total at the end, which is really that's a net of all the columns before it. Add them all up, net them all out, and there's $250,000 in savings in FY21. This next chart, what this is going to show you is what the budgeted salary was for 21 And this goes beyond VERIP. It also includes down below changes, other reorg changes, personnel changes. And so what you'll see here is the difference between the FY21 budgeted salary, which you saw on the first page, and the actual salary if the position has been refilled. And so you'll see in some cases that there's an NA, which means the position has yet to be refilled. We put a note off to the right so you can see exactly the status of each of the positions. So we'll take, for example, go through a couple of these. For example, the first one, the contract manager, in FY21, their budgeted salary was $116,505. That happens to be a position that was eliminated as part of the reorganization. And so that's all savings to the budget. So that's one that we have no intention of refilling, and the duties have been absorbed in other places. Let's take another one, for example. Well, we'll go to the next one, the maintenance repairman 4. That salary was $75,442. That's a position that remains vacant. We intend to fill that, but as of now, it is vacant. So there's an NA there. We don't know what, we know what's budgeted in the budget for that salary, but we don't know where exactly it's gonna end up. There were a couple of these, the planning and zoning planner, that was one that was a part of the reorganization, and it was replaced with an assistant zoning enforcement officer. So you get a sense of where we are, because we're obviously not through the entire fiscal year, and we still have some question marks on all those, on some of the positions that haven't been refilled yet. So we will, as the year goes on and it plays out, we will get a better understanding of what those are. And then down below is the reorganization of personnel. Sorry, let me go back up real quick. The last item at the bottom of the first section for the VERIP program changes, that's the lump sum payout. So we wanted to be sure to capture that amount in there, because that's an additional cost to us related to the reorganization in the VERIP program. So down below is these were mostly positions that were added, and then a few that were changed as a part of the reorganization. So these are the differences. These are not related to VERIP. These are the changes that we made outside of people who opted into VERIP. Any questions? Okay, so I'm going to hand this back over to the first select woman, and she'll continue going through the presentation.
Thank you, Jared. So just to kind of recap some of this before we get to this slide, we were looking for new employees with skills to meet today's needs. And just to kind of, aside from the sort of tracker there, economic development marketing coordinator, formerly just an administrative role, has been hired. We have now an additional engineer with a degree in the engineering department. We have a grant coordinator, a part-time, that began in August. We consolidated the positions as Jared reflected in the chart. Our assistant DPW director, our new assistant DPW director, assumed existing responsibilities at a lower salary, but also incorporating the solid waste and recycling duties. We have a new scale house operator position, and we consolidated 2 part-time positions in the first select woman's office to 1 part-time position. And we moved the superintendent of public works and became a superintendent of parks. Okay, so our next one is ongoing recruiting challenges. The candidate recruitment for government jobs remains a challenge in the labor market. Remote work options in the private sector are attractive to people. Competitive salaries, critical positions are lower than neighboring towns. And we've had several vacancies in the DPW laborers. And as Jared was discussing, we're having some difficulty because some of our neighboring towns are paying higher wages than we are. But Bucky is working on that. We have generational challenges, and workspace in certain government facilities are not adequate. And we have the union contracts. So modernization, making our government more user-friendly and efficient, online credit card processing for solid waste and recycling, town clerk, economic development, online job application system, replacing what we had was paper applications. And this has been so much more efficient. 25 job descriptions have been updated thus far. And just to remind you, when I had brought this forward to you last year, literally we had job descriptions that were typed on a typewriter. And many of them included stenography skills. So we have really done a lot of work in this area. Parking app for our train station parking. We now have an anonymous police tip app. Updated conference rooms with audio and visual technology, which came in very handy when the pandemic hit. Flood monitoring cameras, paving management analysis, which you remember we included in the budget last year, and that analysis will be coming to the bodies very soon, and it will be very helpful as we move forward with our paving schedules and needs. And my first Select Woman newsletter, which many in our community have shared that they really enjoy getting, and they feel very connected to our town and feel like they know much more than they ever knew about town operations. And our town social media accounts. Our department heads now have social media accounts where they're sharing information with our community, which is really good because people feel like they're engaged and they know what's going on. And our online employee training. So coming soon, our online permitting is launching next month with credit card processing capability. It has been delayed because we did lose an IT person in our IT department. And as I was mentioning earlier, you know, it's very hard to recruit when IT is such a big thing now, and a lot of these professionals are giving opportunities from other job opportunities to work remotely. So we actually just recently filled this position. So we're excited about the online permitting launching. And as I may have described to you when we hired our new building official, he has that experience, so he's been really helpful working with Dave Kelly, and I think this is going to be really a home run for our town. The ECC Joint Communication Center, the fire alerting system, which is much more efficient and is connected to the ECC Communication Center, and our Zoom rooms, which we approved ARPA funds. We are very close. We've been working on that, and we're going to be able to offer the ability for all our town boards and commissions to have membership attend in person and virtually, as well as the public and presenters, which is really a huge modernization. The Axon, body dash cameras for the police department, which allows them to be obviously more accountable, not only for themselves, but also for the public. And this is a very modern system. Some of the RTM members, I know moderator Karen Wackerman joined me for the presentation they had at the fire training school. And it was very, very helpful to learn about how the technology has changed and how amazing it is really to keep our officers safe and keep our community safe. Our electric vehicle car fleet, which we're excited to be able to start going toward to purchase, I think is going to be such a great thing for our community to see that our town is invested in clean energy and that we are using clean energy cars for our town operations. Digitizing town
Brenda,
records. Yes.
Brenda, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think we have some questions about the VERIP, and this is nice to hear about, but I think we're maybe off topic from the VERIP. So I'm wondering if we could pause and just get questions on that.
Okay, I mean, it's almost done, so I mean, they are intertwined.
Well, let's see, maybe we can hear it in a minute, but I just wanted to, focus on the VERIP if we could, and Representative Pistilli has questions.
Okay.
Yes, Madam Moderator, through you to Madam First Selectwoman.
Yes, please
so
go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, I was hoping that we would have gotten these materials in advance of the meeting. Like, I was on the road and I only had the weekend to do my homework to prepare for this meeting, and I checked online and I didn't see this presentation like uploaded as a packet in advance of the meeting.
So just to answer your question, this is a presentation, only updated what I had given you during VRIP, it just updated where we are now. And I was requested just for a VRIP update. This is on modernization. And I thought that the body would be interested in how we have utilized VRIP to actually modernize our town services and how they're working. So this isn't actually new information. This is just updating what I had already presented to this body in the past. And I was asked specifically on the VRIP numbers, not on the modernization.
The pages that I really was interested in were the 2 pages that Jared had presented. And I only saw like the 1 page in advance, and the other page was the one that I was really interested in looking at in advance of this meeting. So, like, I have some questions, but we might have to like come back to it. So I was just wondering, like, in the information on like who was leaving and who came back, if we were getting, if we were going to see a comparison of old org charts to new org charts.
I'm sorry, so we responded to Mr. Gerber's questions, and we showed the savings that we had in the prior year and what we have to date right now.
So are there org charts for those departments?
No, there's no org chart.
Because we were going to like reorganize how the departments were working, right? So I thought we were
Right, if you look at that screen, you know, the one I just put, Jackie just put up for you, that shows the reorganization.
Okay, so I'm only seeing this now, unfortunately. The other thing that I would like to see side by side is for either the same position or similarly situated positions, like where one is a replacement for another, like the annualized difference, not just the partial year difference, so that we know ongoing on an annual basis how this is going to affect the budget as opposed to how it's just affecting us this year. Do we have that?
No.
And then what we would need to add to that is like have, you know, the old annual rate for the position, the new annual rate for the position, and then our annual ongoing liability because of the increase in pension and OPEB, because of the B rate. So that we know net how we made out. Because otherwise we don't know annually how this is going to affect our budget.
Can't read that. Can't read that. You want to answer it?
So I can give a couple of answers to that. When you, with regard to pension, you're not going to see an impact on pension until FY23.
Right.
Because of the timing of the actuarial valuation and when that gets done. So that'll be incorporated into the budget that we will be developing over the next 6 to 9 months. So you'll see that then.
But we have the ability to project going forward, right? We can project, like part of what you guys had done in the VRIP projections was look out 10 years, and we had like, you know, the same savings every year, which I argued because of turnover, that savings was going to be less and less as time goes on. Because if you compound the turnover of people, like in 3 years, we could have ended up with as many people leaving. So what we need to do is have, you know, a snapshot for a year in time. This was overall the difference in salaries. This is overall the difference in our liabilities, so that we have a net number. Like, that's what I was hoping we were going to see in terms of an update. And then I was hoping we were going to, like, when we talked about reorganizing government, I was hoping we were going to see, like, you know, this is our strategy. Now that we know who's left and who's coming, who we're hiring, like where our open recs are, like, this is what the org chart's going to look like for town hall.
We did a lot of the crosswalks of how it impacts the agencies when we were presenting the reorg back in earlier this year. So a lot of that is, that's available and has been presented in the past. With regard to, just to go back to pension, once we knew, because you requested this, the RTM had requested this, once we knew the number of employees and the salaries of those employees that were taking it, we presented to you, I believe it was in January, what the impact on pension was. So there's been no change to that today, and we won't change it until the new actuarial valuation is done.
I understand, but now we've made decisions about where we're hiring and where we're going to have attrition, right? And so that's where the true, you know, A over B analysis takes place.
So when we put this together, as the first selectwoman pointed out, we were basing this off of what the request was back at the time, mostly by Representative Gerber. And so we went back and looked at that. And so that's what we were responding to. We're at a point now where we know what happened in FY21. We have all the data. So that's a pretty complete picture. We have provided where we are in 22 so far. We don't have a complete picture right now. We don't know, as you can see by that those tables in front of you. We haven't refilled all the positions yet. So we don't. When we're done with this year, we'll have a better picture, and we'll be able to report back to you then.
Yeah, I'm concerned, so I do HR as a day job, and the talent market is so tight now that I'm concerned with what's open, that the hiring rates are going to end up higher than the people that we lost. So we need to assess that, once we're through the entire process. And then we need to take a look at the org charts, like from old to new, to see how the organization has changed. I think those were things that we had talked about, we would look at in terms of an analysis. But okay, thank you. I'll follow up. I'll follow up with questions, because I didn't get time to review this until now. So thanks.
Representative Gerber, we have a few more questions, Brenda, that may be for Jared. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I just would like, Madam Moderator, I noticed that Representative Vergara said in the chat that we're not in compliance with FOI. This is a publicly taped meeting, and this will be distributed through the public. And my presentation on items that I've already presented on regarding my modernization and reorganization were not on the agenda. What was on the agenda was VRIP and the results of it.
Right.
So I just want to clarify that I believe we provided what the RTM asked us for and gave that back up. And I thought it would be helpful if I had talked a little bit about modernization so people could understand it a little bit better.
I think, I don't think we got the two documents we needed.
Madam Moderator, may I? Since this was directed, with all due respect, this is Representative Vergara. I was specifically talking about the one page that we were distributed not 24 hours before a meeting, but even that one page that we were given today is not available to the public. And I do believe that is a FOIA violation. And I'm just trying to mention that so that maybe moving forward, we can supply the public, who I've gotten emails from people just during our meeting, where is this information? And I don't have anything to tell them because they can't find it online. So
Madam Moderator, this was posted online and it was sent to the body in September.
What was? I'm sorry. What are you talking
the
about?
Information. The two-page,
Oh, no.
the one page that we gave you on VRIP was posted in the backup, and it was posted online in September.
No, it was posted in the Board of Selectmen backup. And then today you sent me all the backup and I had to go through it.
Which I sent to you, Madam Moderator. And we also posted
Jared
it.
sent it. Let me, Brenda, I'm going to let you talk, and I'm the moderator, so you have to let me talk. So I just want to point out that it was Jared sent me the Board of Selectmen backup in September. I didn't know that was going to be the same. You sent that again. I had to go through all the backup and find the one page. It doesn't include the other page that Representative Fiscal mentioned. And also, you're saying yourself that the modernization part is not on our agenda. So what we really were looking for is the VERIP update. If you wanted to talk about modernization, you could have talked to me about that, but that's not on the agenda. And we're just asking for, we should have had this in advance, this page that's on here right now in particular. So.
But you were given it, Madam Moderator.
No, I wasn't. I was given a bunch of pages from the Board of Selectmen in September that I learned today included one page from this. So we're going to move on and let Representative Gerber ask questions.
Oh, thank you. Actually, could I, Madam Moderator, through you to Jared Schmidt, if that's okay? Hi, Jared. Thanks for taking my questions. Bill Gerber, District 2. I'd like to stay on this page where you are now. This is a useful page, and I was a little confused by, Representative Fiscal asked a question, and then I was a little confused by the answer, because what I thought this page was versus the prior, versus what we got in preparation for this meeting, I thought this page actually was like an annualized salary for those positions, and that the differences in red actually are annualized expected differences. Am I reading that wrong?
That's true. For the ones that we that are refilled, those are, yeah, that's what we know, and those would be annualized amounts.
Okay, and that's total comp, or is that just salary?
Those are salaries.
Okay, so the 430 at the bottom is sort of what you would expect to be sort of a minimum annual saving, assuming that the new positions aren't greater than the old positions. Is that right?
Assuming that they're not, we are finding in some places, as Representative Fiscal pointed out, that there are some, it is a tight market, and so in some cases we are having to spend a little bit more for some of these positions. So it could change some, but I would say it'll be around there.
Okay, and before, I do have some questions for First Selectwoman Kupchik, but could I just, real quickly, I think it's great, if we could just nail down at this point the cost, or as close to the cost of the VRIP as we can, considering all the conversations we had when this was coming up initially, that other towns typically don't do this, actually nail down the cost. They just sort of move on and never look back. And so you did provide us a number for the 17 employees, OPEB and pension expected adjustments, and that was $4,363,975. And I just added, and that was broken down into 2.1 million for pension, 2.256 for OPEB. And then I think you told us that the cash payout will be $300,000. Does that ring a bell?
That sounds right. I believe it's $75,000 a year for 4 years.
Okay. And then the vacation payout on the sheet of paper that you provided us, it looks like the vacation payout is $256,512. And I guess my question was, is that total, or is that only sort of 1 year, or do you expect to be done with that?
Those are done.
Okay. So then that gets us to a total of 4.920, something, a little more than 4.9 million. And I was just wondering, is there anything else that we should expect to be included in that final, tabulation?
I'm not sure what you're saying, and I want to make sure that I'm addressing your question and we're talking from the same base, because I think when you get into the $1 million numbers, we're talking out 20 years from now, not this year and next, not last year and this year, which is totally different than what you guys asked
I totally agree. What for the pension and OPEB, it's the discounted value, so it's the DCF of the future pension costs. But I think that's the appropriate. I mean, that's the reserve increase that was expected, at least when you did the calculation in January, and then add to that 300,000 that's not discounted, but it shouldn't be a big deal, and then the vacation payout of 256, and I'm just wondering, are there other costs associated with this in addition to those sort of categories?
There may be some other de minimis costs that I'm not thinking of right now, but that's going to be the bulk of it.
Okay, so it's something under 5, so it's about 4.9 million in I think, more, give or take. And so that's just a reference point, and I guess maybe that'll change when you actually put the liability up in a couple of years. And that comes out over the 17 employees. It's about $290,000 per employee. So that's something, I think it's something we should have on record for future buyouts, so that we do this better than other towns, because it sounded like in Jim Hazelcamp's past towns, they never did that work, and I think it's great.
I mean, if I could, just to address that, you're projecting out, like I said, over 20 years, the cost, and you've isolated this one particular cost, and aren't considering all the other savings and over the next 20 years. So you just, you've kind of taken that one piece and separated it from everything else over the long term. What I would like to do is to, and this is what I think you were asking for, is to look at these things on a year-by-year basis. And so we know, right now, we know what it cost in 21, and we know what it saved in 21. We can tell you that for sure. The plan's in place. We're moving forward with it. So let's let these years play out, and as they do, we can give you an update, and we can tell you that, we will know at that time, the following year, what the ADEC was, what the ADEC increase was for OPEB and for pension. We'll know what the additional salaries were. We'll have concrete numbers at that point, and we can report those to you, and you can make your judgments as to how effective you think it was.
I completely understand and agree with that comment. Well, I'm just throwing down a marker for what the current discount expected cost without the offsetting benefits is, and it sort of throws down a marker for what over time, we would expect to get back in savings for the return. That's it. So thank you for that. I think it's an important number to have, and then as you update this going forward, you're going to show us the annual savings from the reorg and how it pays off.
Yep.
So I think that's all I have for you. If Madam Moderator, may I continue on with a couple questions for First Selectwoman Kupchak?
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, Brenda. Thanks for taking my questions. I just wanted to follow up because, as you mentioned, I had a bunch of questions and requirements, for my vote. which you have addressed some of them here. I just wanted to go into a little more detail if possible. So there were, you know, as part of the approval process, I'd asked for a bunch of things and you'd agreed to them, and I just want to go through them and get a little more detail on them, if that's okay. The first one was the updated job descriptions. You mentioned there have been 25 updated job descriptions, and I guess begs the question, how many are there to go? So what percentage are we halfway done? Are we 75% done with that?
I mean, we're getting there.
So is that a big chunk of it, or are we still sort of at the beginning stages?
I mean, these are for important jobs, obviously, crucial jobs that we thought needed to change and be more relevant to today's government. Obviously, stenography skills are not really needed. And so we, obviously, the ones that we wanted to change and reorganize are the ones that we tackled first. I mean, you're not going to rewrite a job description for a DPW laborer or things of that nature. Can I read that? So, you know, there's certain job descriptions. For example, economic development, they had just a regular admin there. You know, we modified that position so they had marketing skills and they could actually be relevant to, you know, and we can update you as we have vacancies, but at this point in time, you know, we rewrote job descriptions where we needed to fill them with more qualified or talented people.
Okay, and I'm not just pulling these out of the air. These are the things that are they're in the minutes. You know, we talked about them in December of 2020. So I'm just asking what for now, just the discussion of, and if they're not done, that's fine. You just say that. But I think part of the pitch or the discussion that Mr. Hazelkamp had and you had was the job descriptions were so vague that it opened the door for, if there are poor employees, you couldn't really necessarily discipline them, and that could be at any level. You couldn't really say, well, if you're unwilling to do this or that, you know, you got to go. If it's nothing in the job description, I don't think, you know, the intention was just, you know, really for the high level new jobs. It was because of some discussion about just how horrible the files were and how difficult it was to hold people's feet to the fire in terms of performance.
Well, it wasn't just, Representative, it wasn't just the job descriptions per se. So, for example, you know, when there was nothing in people's files. So, I mean, obviously, if someone comes in late every day, if someone doesn't come back within the hour for their lunch, if someone is not delivering a high level of customer service to a forward-facing, you know, department, a public safety department. If complaints are constantly coming into a department and you get here, you're new, I read them, and then I go and I look and I don't see anything in anybody's file that they were ever written up for behavior that was unbecoming of a town employee. So there's a whole host of things that we are putting in place. You know, obviously, we got sidetracked by COVID. COVID has taken a huge hit on this administration and the entire, most of the departments. And we additionally have our hands full with the fill pile and all the remediation meetings that now are on top of everything else. But we are really trying hard to make sure that we're modernizing all of these departments and we are putting in trainings, and that was part of my presentation. You know, if I could finish it, it would answer some of the questions of where we are, what we're doing, what we've done, and what we're going to continue to do to modernize, to provide training, and to hire people that are fitting the needs of our residents or in these departments in different ways.
Yeah, that's great. I hope you finish it because that is part of the pitch here. And but I was just asking how, because just to remind you that, the job descriptions wasn't just the top level people, it was everyone. And the pitch was that was part of the lack of job description for some of the lower level people made it impossible to do the performance reviews because, so we'll get updates on this periodically, right?
Yes, absolutely, as we get them. But again, this is a massive, just to remind you and the entire RTM, when you walk into something that's so completely broken, I mean, it is a mammoth task to just try to fix. There's everything you fix, every stone you pick up, 1,000 things crawl out from under it. And I just honestly, the undertaking and the lack of management here for so long, it was stunning to me. And we are trying really hard. I mean it. I mean, my administration works a ton of hours. We work a lot of hours every day trying to deliver the best
that.
we can for our community. And so I am trying. I am, believe me.
I know you are. I appreciate it. I just want to go through and just see how you feel you are and the certain things that we discussed prior to the vote, because I would be remiss if I didn't. And so the other one was performance reviews, and you said there were none going on when you got here. And so are there performance reviews now, or has that gotten into effect yet, or?
So I actually have to check with our HR director. He's, again, I think I mentioned this to the body in the past. He's underwater down there because of the lack of anything that really went on down there. So he's been spending a lot of time in negotiations with a lot of these unions are up. He's working on the nurse. He just finished up with the nurses, which took him weeks. The fire contract is open. He's spending a lot of time doing those negotiations, and unfortunately, we had filled the position in his office. We filled one full-time and one part-time, but Mr. Hazelkamp was unsatisfied with the performance of the full-time position, and during so we now have that position open. So we're doing the best we can here.
I
and
understand.
as Representative Fiscal mentioned, it's not easy to hire municipal government. It's hard. Performance reviews do occur. But again, we can't really discuss personnel matters publicly. And so there's some, even I could say, yes, we're doing it, but I couldn't tell you what they are or what's in them and how they operate.
No, I wouldn't ask what they are. I'm just asking whether or not you're doing them periodically. I was going to ask how often, but it sounds like that's still a work in progress. But we'll get updates.
And we have a lot of
sure.
lot of training finally scheduled. That COVID is released a little. We can do more some online stuff, but also some spaced trainings, because we had a whole bunch lined up before COVID, and so we're excited about getting those going.
So one of your biggest issues when you first got there was the employee files weren't up to date, and like disciplinary notifications were never put in the files. I assume that hasn't changed much either because of the factors that you just mentioned. Is that right? Like that's still a work in progress?
Things are definitely changing. They're changing a lot.
Okay. And then employee training, you mentioned employee training. Can you just talk a little bit about training and sort of, is there like an annual, like mandatory minimum amount of training for employees now? Because I think that was one of your biggest issues as well, that employees weren't getting trained.
So yeah, that was part of my presentation. It was gonna, before I got cut off, so I could just share with you.
If you're gonna talk about
Jackie,
it, then.
Jackie could throw up that screen. It's page 12 on the slide deck. Hold on a second. There we go. So professional development, continuing training. So additional employee trainings are scheduled for November. The topics is managing in a public sector. That's for our department heads. Building effective work teams for managers, And Munis, which I don't know if any of you have worked in municipal government, it's this government operation software that everyone hates apparently, and every town has it, and it's really cumbersome and horrifying to use, but that we're gonna have training in that. Excellence in customer service, excellence in colleague communication, seeing is believing, anti-racism, equity, inclusion, and diverse workplace, workplace sexual harassment and discrimination prevention, active aggressor shooting, and graphics, flyers, social media, and website updates for our department so they keep their department websites fresh and updated, and Microsoft trainings.
Okay, fantastic. And so you're investing in new, younger, or new employees coming in, replacing some of the employees who left. And so are you going to have, do you have policies in place for sort of minimum hours of annual training just to keep people fresh, or is that work in progress?
Yes, some of the trainings are required by us, and some are voluntary.
Are you going to have like ongoing professional development? Again,
absolutely.
This was,
yes, and yes.
So, okay, can you include sort of the policies in future presentations on this? Because again, this was, I'm just going back to the pitch for the VRIP and the way that you were going to differentiate how things were run in the past and how things are going to run in the future, so that hopefully we don't have to do buyouts, VRIPs in the future, if to keep people fresh, keep them. That's sort of the part of the pitch, right? Hopefully this is the last one. Those are all my questions, and I don't know if we are going to allow first.
Yeah, we have a new employee assistance program that has thousands of online trainings, and my administration takes this very seriously. Trust me, I ran a business for over 35 years. My husband's running the show now, but I ran it with him for 35 years. So I have a very high level of expectations from people, and that people need to bring 110% every single day. And things are going quite well around here. I'm really excited about how things are turning around.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So, Madam Moderator, do you want, would you like me to finish, or did you?
There actually are a couple more questions, and I was muted.
Sure.
I apologize. Representative Kuhn.
Thanks, John Kuhn, District 7, through the moderator I'm not sure if this is for the first selectwoman or for the CFO, maybe both. I guess until we can go back to that page, the second page in the VRIP, the numbers, I thought I had heard that there was no org chart, no organization chart. Is that correct?
We don't have an org chart. We have the information that we provided about positions that were eliminated, positions that were changed. That is our chart.
So there's an org chart in the financial statements. Is that not operative?
I'll have our CFO come and speak to you on that.
The org chart in the financial statements is pretty broad, and it's not going to really. I'm not sure haven't looked at it in that perspective, but I'm not sure it's going to capture all the. Certainly not going to capture all the changes that we're making as part of the reorganization. There are each of the department heads do put as part of the budget process put together organization charts. So we will have those, and they will be updated as we go through the budget development process.
And, okay, and so then we'll have one from last year and one projected for the next year that we can look at comparisons to.
So, Representative, just to let you know, there were no org charts when we got here. So obviously, you know, and this is not an excuse, but my first few months here, I had to fire the CFO and build my first budget without a financial director, and then COVID hit 2 days after the budget passed Board of Selectmen. So with everything that in town hall that was wrong, we've had our hands full. So when we found out there were no org charts, you know, we're working on those. We would love to have those, and that's something I will talk to our department heads about as we start to put together the budget.
So perhaps as part of this modernization pitch, a forward-looking one, maybe we can get some updates on that foot to where these anticipated cost savings are coming from and some of the modernization is going forward.
So again, in my presentation, in my slide deck, I am talking about what we are doing in our modernization. I actually have included it in my newsletter to our residents, so they could also be aware of it. And it takes time to reorganize a town government. It's a lot of work. There's over 400 employees in our town, and this actually has never even been done in our town. So yes, it's not a pitch. It's actually a job that we're doing, and that we're doing every single day.
Great. So as we go forward in this job, you can keep us abreast of changes in the org chart that exists in the financial statements and how some of these costs are, how they overlay onto that. Is that fair?
Well, I think we'd have to actually talk to our department heads are going to have to create them because they've never had one before. The RTM never requested any of those, and they never had org charts.
Okay. If we can go back to that there page where it's the second one that I don't think we had, that I think Bill was talking about, there are a whole lot of offices in the Department of Public Works that seem to be vacant. And
right.
No, next page, please. And so my question is, first off, a little bit more generally, are we, I realize in the page before there are some part-time costs. Are we using third-party contractors for some of this stuff that's not captured in here? Using the third-party contractors because we have eliminated positions or we haven't been able to fill them?
Well, the town has always used sometimes contracting service for landscaping and things of that nature. Our DPW director, who's not on tonight, could speak more specifically about how the operation works at DPW than I could. But it's always had a large amount of employees. And as I mentioned earlier, we are kind of finding we're competing with other towns who have these similar open positions. And these aren't necessarily positions that were eliminated under VRIP. It's just that DPW work, laborers are in short supply, I mean, all across our country. I mean, restaurants are having trouble securing people, and other towns are paying more than our town has offered in the past. And these are things we'll be discussing as I build the budget with my department heads. We may potentially have to increase some salaries just to attract some people to this, because if the other towns are offering more than we are, obviously it's going to make us less competitive.
Okay, so let me re-ask the question then. In general, has the level of third-party outside work, whether that be laborers or professional, doesn't matter the level, is that higher because of the fact that we have eliminated positions and we need the work done, and we're getting it done through third parties that aren't showing up in these numbers?
No.
Okay. And are there any are there any projects that are going lagging because we have, particularly again in the public works, that we have a lot of vacancies that we will see a catch up in future years?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
You want to go back to the next slide? Number
Representative
13.
Iacono.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I was going to actually, a couple of comments, if I may. First of all, there were never any org charts under the previous administration, and it's a huge undertaking. I don't want to speak for Representative Pistilli, but she and I both know that HR world, and getting that all done, it's a lot of work, and yes, it would definitely be helpful, but we've never had them before, and it's great that the first Selectwoman is willing to have everybody put that together and assemble it in one place for us to look at. I agree it would be helpful, but it's just not something that's been done in government before, and as Brenda mentioned, it's not an excuse, but it was a frustration of mine that I dealt with the previous administration. So that's on that particular note. The second thing is this item this evening is not a voting item. So there's the claims that there's some kind of public violation. The Board of Education does this kind of stuff all the time, makes a presentation and then posts it afterwards. So, you know, as long as we get this up when we're done, I think we've met that, considering the fact that we're not voting on anything this evening. And then finally, I would just I would like to hear the rest of the presentation to tie this all together so that I can put it all together. For me, this whole thing is about an entire reorganization and how it all came together. And once those pieces are all filled in, you know, I might have additional questions, as may other people. For example, Mr. Representative Gerber just asked something about training that was tied into a slide. So I'm just wondering if there's other things in here, and if we could just finish it out and then come back and go from there, because some of the stuff that we might have is probably at the end of that presentation. Thank you for your consideration, Madam Moderator.
We do have a few more questions. Representative Zezima.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Liz Zezima, District 4, through you to the presenters, First Selectwoman and Jared. I just want to echo that while there may not be precedent for an organizational chart, I think when an administration is making such sweeping changes, it's really incumbent to present them in a way that we can see what the impact is. Obviously, we're in a tight labor market, which is causing wage inflation and scarcity. So I do have a concern of not only losing institutional knowledge, but how this is almost a temporary forced attrition and what we're doing about that. Also, just to mention the CCM, which is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, I understand offers free training that may in fact be applicable to some of the endeavor in terms of training current town employees.
We are using them.
Great, thank you.
Representative Pistilli.
Through you, Madam Moderator, to the CFO, please. Jared, if you don't mind, sorry to make you come back. So my question is a little bit specific, only because this is the first time looking at it. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this properly. Are you, can you see the same page that I'm looking, that is on our WebEx?
Yes, yep.
Okay, cool. So I'm looking at the 2021 salary, and then the middle column, which I can't read right now because there's a bubble in the way, is the new salary, and the right column is the difference, right? And then this shows that we're saving $405,000 because the first column is more than the second column, and the third column is the difference, right?
Yes.
So maintenance repairman 4, we lost that person to VRIP. We haven't filled it again. But once we fill it, we're back up to a number that's going to be close to 75,442. Right?
So
Correct?
that one, yes,
In the
yeah.
right column, it'll be in the middle column, and it'll reduce the right column by that amount. So
right, the NA would turn in, that first NA would turn into a number, whatever it is, we hire that new person at, and then there would be another difference. We would be able to show a difference there in the last column.
It'd be like 405 minus 75, pretty much, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
It'd be, see the 405 on the bottom? It'd be 405 minus 75. Because we're now paying for that person again, right? So the point is, I added up maintenance repairman. Sorry, go ahead.
Let's just do it by example. Let's say the 75,442, that's the FY21 budgeted for the maintenance repairman. Let's say we hire somebody at, I don't know, I'll say 60,000. So that third column of numbers will become about 15,000 in savings, which would make the 405 become about 420 in savings.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't quite understand the relationship, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, we don't have any more questions at the moment, so Ms. First Selectwoman, if you'd like to continue your presentation, please do.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So where were we, Jackie? After. Okay, so I thought we talked about this already. Yeah, we did. Did the employee trainings next. So the town of, we came up with this town employee pledge, and we shared it with all our employees, and it hangs in each of the departments, and you can read. We will exemplify the town's mission, vision, and values, be an ambassador, maintain a positive attitude, greet everyone courteously, always be professional. Treat every customer with importance, be respectful, treat residents and colleagues with the equal sense of urgency, keep your promises and commitments. Provide prompt, accurate service, take ownership, be accountable, be knowledgeable and helpful, follow up with customers, and we pledge to do our part, make our departments and our town the model of excellent customer service, to treat all customers and colleagues and residents with respect and friendliness. And we take ownership of any problem that is within our power to solve, and we'll do so with a positive and professional attitude. Our next slide is just the summary on the FY budgetary savings. The HR is documenting personnel issues, decreased customer service complaints to my office, and let me just tell you, by a lot, like a huge amount. And the new hires are really making a difference. They are making a huge difference in the departments where they are, and our reorganization and modernization is an ongoing process. So I just would like to say that, you know, I realize there's questions. It's a lot. It's been a lot for this last 2 years, and frankly, like I mentioned earlier, I was stunned by the lack of oversight on the systems, and I thought that would be in place in a government of this size, serving a town of 61,000 people. And every day, new issues would arise, and the town was just not effectively handling it. And the HR practices, job descriptions, reports and files, all of it. So, you know, we're really pushing through and getting things done. And I'm getting such positive feedback from our residents and our businesses who are utilizing our town departments, and they're feeling like there's just a different culture happening here now, and the residents know that they can come to me when there's something that's not working, or if they haven't been provided the service that they should have been provided, and I'm able to step in and make sure things are happening. But I have to say, it's been decreased enormously since we've done this reorganization.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for the first select woman or Mr. Schmidt? Jeff Steele, Representative Steele.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I have a question and I have a comment. Brenda, this is great. Will you be able to continue doing updates? I think the this body, whether it exists as it is now and the future body, would really appreciate updates going forward. So will you be able to continue giving these?
Absolutely. You know, as we move forward, I mean, we've got some things to still work through, but you know, I'm excited to tell everybody about what we're doing. I know it's, you know, some people may feel like it's not enough, but I can't even tell you how hard it was to even get to this part. And it's been a tremendous effort, and I'm proud of it. And I'd love to share how we're doing as we're moving along.
Well, that's great. I just my comment is, you know, when you started this back at the end of last year, I mean, I certainly thought it was a good idea. We had to flesh it out a bit, and I think we've all done that together. Both caucuses have done that. A lot of questions. I think transparency's been great. But what I really like is that, you know, VERIP is a part of this whole government reorg. I mean, it's an important part of it, but everything, you know, in addition to the VERIP, the reorg, where you're talking about changing processes, you're bringing in technology, you're improving communications, you're setting mission, vision, and values and goals, which is important. So I like hearing this update in addition to the VERIP. I like hearing everything else you're doing the reorg because it's a greater program, it's a bigger program. And I'd say I think in 9.5 months, you've done a considerable amount. I mean, much of it, I didn't know a lot of the details that you just gave us. So I think that was fantastic. So I think you've made a tremendous amount of progress. We should all be proud. But I do like how we've all been able to ask questions. And I love the questions mentioned. Sharon, great questions. Bill, great questions. So this was good. It's good that we can all flesh this out. So I appreciate this transparency. I appreciate everything you've done. And this looks like a great program. And so far we've seen results. And I look forward to seeing how it transpires going forward.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, I don't think so. Thank you, Brenda, for being available for this.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Okay. So we'll move next to, well, the next two items we saw on the at the committee meeting, to hear a report on town leases of historic properties. And item 6 was to hear a report on the pollinator pathway program. So we received those at the committee meeting. Item 7, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the town of Fairfield authorizes the Board of Education of the town of Fairfield to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant for the Roger Ludlow Middle School roof repair project at Roger Ludlow Middle School. Further resolved that the Roger Ludlow Middle School Building Committee is hereby established as the building committee with regard to the Roger Ludlow Middle School roof replacement project at Roger Ludlow Middle School. And further resolved that the town of Fairfield hereby authorizes at least the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for the Roger Ludlow Middle School roof replacement project at Roger Ludlow Middle School. Thank you for asking to waive the reading, Representative Havey. I just read it too late. This item is actually on the consent calendar. All of the committees approved this item. So unless there's an objection, we'll just go right to a vote. Is there anyone objecting to that? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thanks. So that's unanimously approved. The next item is to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond appropriation entitled a resolution appropriating $2,991,607 for the cost of the Roger Ludlow Middle School full roof replacement project and for roofing and design services for the partial roof replacement projects at Sherman and McKinley Elementary Schools and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, consisting of 3 pages, a copy of which is attached hereto, be and hereby is approved. Can I have a motion to approve this item? Representative Wolf, seconded by Representative Siebert. Is there any discussion? Okay, this was approved at the Board of Finance level, so we've got that set. No one has any questions? Okay, so we'll go right to the vote. All in favor of this, of passing this resolution, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item, and I will, Representative Havey has moved to waive all the readings. Is there a second of that motion? Representative Stilley, I think that is. So we'll waive the readings of this last item, which is related to the transfer of funds. But I will mention, as I sent email to all of you, that the Board of Finance increased the amount to be transferred from surplus to the remediation account. And I'm hoping that Mr. Schmidt is still on. Maybe you can just tell us about that. Jared, are you available?
Can you, what's the question? Sorry.
Just if you could explain what the Board of Finance did. I know they transferred more money. Where did that surplus come from? You know, for those of us who may not have seen the Board of Finance meeting, that changes our approval here.
All right, I apologize. Are we on the surplus now? The surplus transfer?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Give me 1 second, please.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. So the resolution that you have in front of you, if you look on or I should say the agenda item corresponds to what's on page 56 of your backup. And so that's the way this was initially presented.
Mm-hmm.
That was the original resolution that went through the Board of Selectmen. Since then, and on the same day that the Board of Finance was going to take this up, we learned that we were getting additional revenue, and this was a result of an application that we filed for reimbursement for costs related to Storm Isaias. So this is FEMA reimbursement money. And so we had to amend the resolution. So it started in the Board of Finance. I know it's a little bit out of order, but it's just because we needed to do this quickly. Started in the Board of Finance, was amended there with the anticipation that the Board of Selectmen would do likewise pro forma, and the Board of Selectmen did that earlier. And so the resolution that related to the amended resolution is on page 57 of your backup. And so if you were to take, I'm gonna go to the backup, and I can tell you exactly how the agenda item, as it's written in there now, how that should be amended.
Okay.
To correspond to the changes that were made. So if you look at the agenda item number 9 that's in there now, what would happen is the under excess revenue, we would add a line below where it says increase H. Smith Rich golf fees. There would be a new line inserted there, and that line would be increase Storm Isaias FEMA reimbursement, and the dollar amount next to it, like the ones above it, would be $585,000. there would be a new account number, 01001-49998. And so this is all duplicated in the backup. You'll see this in the backup too. And then the other change that would appear on this item, on the agenda item, would be the last line in there where it says increased transfers out CNR remediation account. That amount that's in there would change to $6,885,000. So that's to accommodate the additional $585,000 that we were told about last week. So essentially, what's happening is we're taking the previous amount, the $6.3 million, to go into the remediation account for fill pile costs, and we're changing it to $6.885 million. That's the upshot of the whole thing.
Okay. Thank you very much. Representative Iacono?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm sorry, I just have a process question. Did we get an updated agenda or resolution from the town clerk? No. Okay, so just to understand what we're doing right now, we have to amend what's on the agenda to reflect storm ISIS, storm reimbursement, and the amount of, and I'm sorry, can the CFO just repeat that dollar amount?
Sure. If you represent
just the dollar amount.
Sure.
Just whatever that line is, please.
$6,885,000.
No, the storm ISIS reimbursement.
$585,000.
Right?
585.
That resolution is in your backup. The new resolution is in your backup on page 57.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
It's in the backup?
Oh, that's the resolution.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the actual language of the resolution.
The updated one. The amended one.
Yep. There's two resolutions in the backup. One is on page 56. The other one's on page 57. The one on page 56 is the old one. The one on page 57 is the new one.
All right. I was just wondering
if after the Board of Finance. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was actually, the only reason I'm asking is, do we actually have to vote to amend, or was it noticed as amended?
It wasn't noticed as amended.
So
okay. We have to amend it.
So we have to make the motion to increase storm ISIS reimbursement in the amount of $585,000 and to change the transfers out of CNR to $6,885,000.
Right.
Thank you for the clarification. Sure.
Okay.
Do you need me to repeat it, or is that good enough for the record?
Yeah, I think that's good enough. Would someone like to second that motion, please? Representative Zezima. Thank you. So we're going to just vote on this motion and not the entire motion at this moment. We're just voting on the change. Is there any discussion before we vote? Any questions about the increase? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Oh. Nobody? Any abstentions? Okay, so that amendment passes unanimously, and so we're now going to move to the main motion. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the general motion? Representative Gerber.
Madam Moderator, through you to Jared Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jared, thanks for taking my questions. I really appreciate you responding to my questions by email, and also pointing me to, was it GASB 49? and I have to say it's been a long time since I've read one of these. But I do have a question about what's going to happen once this transfer is made. First of all, this is restricted once it's made. It has to be used for the fill pile?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so this goes sort of part of the way there to what's been identified as risk or as potential liability. And I really, yeah, like I said, it's been a long time since I've looked at this stuff, especially for government accounting. Can you explain, you know, based on the GASB that you pointed me to, what is our remaining exposure this year? And you made it sound like we don't need to necessarily appropriate additional funds, and I was wondering why.
So
and
this is,
maybe I should I flesh that question out a little bit more? I don't know if that's being vague, but so First Selectwoman Kupchik gave a presentation to the Board of Finance where she ranges around some of these risks, and the cap and close the fill pile $48 million, to remediate the fill under Penfield $2.5 to $5 million, to remediate Penfield parking lot $3 to $5 million, and remaining sites $3 to $4 million. So the range that we're looking at is 13 to 22 million. And so if you back out 6.8 million that we're going to transfer now, we still have, and I don't know if there's a beginning balance, but we still have something over 5 million at the low end. And so what I'm really wondering is how we get that money, or why we wouldn't need to appropriate that money.
So the requirement of GASB is not about, GASB is more about reporting and what we report as far as environmental liabilities and environmental obligations in this case. And so it doesn't instruct us as to how much or whether or not we appropriate money. It's that we disclose what we believe the amount to be. And we, as I mentioned in my response, we'll be working with the consultants and with our auditor to be sure that we're meeting all the requirements and that we disclose an amount that is appropriate.
So you're saying that even the 6.8 million that doesn't need to be restricted, but we're just doing that on our own. Is that right?
I'm not sure I understand that, but what I guess what we're trying to do with this money is to give you all and everybody confidence that we're not just putting this money into a pool where we have free reign of what we do with it. This is going into an account that is specifically set up to fund fill pile remediation expenses and
right.
testing as well.
So it's restricted by Fairfield, but not restricted because of any accounting rules. That's right. What it sounds like. And you mentioned that currently in your public disclosure, for your bond offerings, you've disclosed 5 to 10 million of risk, but that clearly differs a fair amount from the 13 to 22 million of risk that the First Selectman went through. So are you going to be updating the 5 to 10 million in future, just to get a sense for the future risk around this? Are you going to be updating that?
Right. So there's going to be work that we do over the next several months. We'll continue to get more information from our consultants, and so next year when we go to issue bonds, we will have a better sense of what that number is, or a different sense, and probably a better sense too. So I suspect it's going to change.
So for government accounting, though, bond offerings aside, for the government accounting, you might disclose 13 to 22 million or net, 5 to 15 million or something like that. But you don't need to actually reserve for it. It's just a disclosure.
I'm not sure what you mean by reserve. We don't need to set money aside for it. In this case,
doesn't the GASB sort of talk about, accruing liabilities and what you need,
It's a number that's in the top level financial statements. It's not, we don't have to do, it doesn't have any impact on the budget.
But it might have an impact on our net assets as a town, right?
That's true. That's true. Yes, and that's we'll disclose that as is appropriate. I'm trying to paint the difference between what we need to disclose in our financial statements versus what we budget. So we don't need to. We're not required to appropriate this whatever amount is determined or range is determined.
Right.
We're using the surplus in this case because it seems prudent.
Okay. Well, so we have the surplus to cover this additional, let's say 5 to 15 million after this transfer. So you don't need to find money elsewhere, I guess. Is because this is this is a pretty solid range, right? 13 to 22 million.
It's going to continue to change in the future. That's going to change.
Okay. All right. So we shouldn't really worry about that right now because we don't really know. Right now we're just looking at 6.8 million. We're not going to expect another 5 to 15 million of reserves. I don't really truly understand this. Government accounting is weird, but I'm just going to drop it because we'll just go around in circles. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll say this. I know the first selectman would like to talk more about and give a presentation on those dollar amounts, just so that everybody's clear about what those ranges are that she's been talking about.
Yeah, thank you. And my thought is, if it's something that should be taken care of this year or could be taken care of this year, then it should be, and not let it drag on, forever. And so if we need another 5 to 15 million of allocations, then we should just do it. But that, sounds like you're not there yet.
No.
Representative Havey.
Hi, yes, Lisa Havey, District 6. I have a question. I'm not exactly sure who, Madam Moderator, to address it to. It's, as there's funds available for the remediation process, are any of these funds available to the town employees that were left exposed to the fill pile, such as like health monitoring and such? I believe the town has a duty of care, and I'm hoping that is being funded to the not just DPWs, but any other town employees that were exposed. Thank you.
So not to go into too much personnel issues, but the town has paid for testing for all employees that were in that area, and that's a whole process that went through HR, and we have worked with Yale on that.
Is this a continued process, or was this a one-time only deal?
This is a personnel and health issue that's between the employees and the HR department.
So you're not going to share if town employees have their health needs met that were exposed?
All town employees are being taken care of.
And that's being paid out of the remediation for the fill pile, or is that part of your HR package?
This has nothing to do with that.
Excuse me, Ms. Kupchak, I am speaking. My question is very relevant to the health and safety of this town, and I would like to have your attention, please. I want to know that the town, how the town is paying for special expenses due to the fill pile issue for town employees. And if I have to, go offline and meet with the HR director, that's great. I can do that. But I want to know that there's money being spent on our town employees. Thank you.
So I'd like to answer your question. I thought I had. The town employees went through a testing through Yale. It was paid for through the town. It is not paid through any remediation costs that we're asking for this evening.
Correct. My
Or
question
the money
was,
that
this
we're
is one
transferring
time.
into the fill pile account.
Is this a one-time testing situation, or is it available ongoing?
I'm actually not, I don't have all the information between what HR is working on with them. I know that happened early on 2 years ago when I came in.
That's a very fair response. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. If you don't know, you don't know. I appreciate that. Thank you.
But to be clear, none of the money that's being transferred is going into a fill pile fund, would go toward that.
Okay, thank you.
If that answers your question.
It does, both of them. Thank you.
Very good.
Representative Iacono.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you to someone from the administration. So just to back up, these new monies will go. I remember the Board of Finance set something up related to legal fees. Does this money incorporate legal fees as well, or is it just straight up remediation, or it's sort of only one pot?
So it's all fees are included. We do have a legal fee account, but I believe it is the legal fees. The legal fees are a separate account.
Separate account. Okay. Thank you very much.
Representative Kuhn.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think this is probably a Jared question, dovetailing on Representative Gerber's question. I think I can clarify for Bill. I think what you're saying, Jared, is that there's not a restricted cash account that's being set up. There is a liability, an environmental liability. And I think Bill was thinking that we need to set aside cash. And I guess my question is, have the auditors said to us that we don't need to disclose this higher amount that's being talked about, that the Board of Finance, I presume, in some sort of a public forum had discussed? And have we talked to the auditors? Have we talked to the rating agencies? Have we notified the bondholders of this increase in the liability?
We have talked to our auditor, and we're going to continue to talk with him and to our consultants so that we know that there's going to have to be a liability and obligation number that we have to account for in our report. And so that's going to be what we work on, talking to the auditor and also talking to the consultants to figure out what's an appropriate number to put into there, because it has to be, we're told it has to be a discrete number.
And is there no there's no materiality threshold that requires this to be disclosed to existing bondholders?
It was disclosed.
Okay.
It was disclosed in our last official statement.
Okay.
And then when we go to issue bonds again, we will disclose an updated number based on the new information that we have.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Jared, I don't know if this is for you or Brenda, but a question I had was whether, because we have these funds now set aside, if the testing can be accelerated. I was surprised by how many sites have not yet even been tested. Do you know?
So So we have 50 sites throughout the town. Most have been tested. The problem is a lot of them had to be retested for additional things. And so we are in negotiations and working with DEEP. Obviously, it took a long time just to get the 25 sites we got remediated. This isn't a fast process. This is all negotiating, going back and forth, LEPs and the environmental attorneys, my administration. And so it's unfortunately, it can't be fast tracked. It has to be done in accordance with the environmental agencies.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on this item? If not, we can go to a vote. So we're now voting on the resolution as amended with the additional funds. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. It passes unanimously. And now our last item is to consider and act upon any other matters, which I don't think we have. So can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Representative Nichols, seconded by Representative Havey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Do you want to stay here longer? Okay, so we're set, and take care, everyone. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.